She stood in the rain outside the gates of the Georgetown mansion, watching through the windows as her husband toasted champagne with the woman carrying his child, in the $700 million estate she'd just inherited, but he didn't know she owned.
This can't be
Sometimes
happening.
the quietest
We'll figure
revenge
this
is
out
just
together.
watching someone celebrate in a house that was never theirs.
You need to see this now. It's
The thing
urgent.
about being invisible
Can't be happening.
is that people forget you can see them. Welcome back to the Tales of the Fireplace, our beautiful family and friends. We are eager to meet you, and we can't wait to share these experiences and journey with you. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, we will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the story. Kendra Matthews learned this truth while standing in her own kitchen, watching her husband Gregory laugh with his colleagues in the dining room. She'd spent 3 hours preparing beef Wellington, roasted Brussels sprouts, and a chocolate souffle that would have made her grandmother Charlotte proud. But when she carried the tray into the room, not one person looked up. "So, Gregory," one of the men said, swirling his wine, "how'd a guy like you end up with such a modest wife?" The table laughed. Gregory didn't defend her. He joined in. "What can I say? I've got a savior complex. Found her working at a flower shop in Mississippi. Figured she deserved better." Kendra's hands tightened around the tray, but her face remained calm. She'd learned that too, how to disappear inside herself when the humiliation became too loud. She set the plates down carefully, one by one, and walked back to the kitchen. In her apron pocket, her phone buzzed, a certified letter notification from Morrison & Associates Legal Group. She'd been avoiding it for 2 days. Across town, at the Kennedy Center, Julian Castle stood on the balcony of the Founders Hall, watching Washington, D.C.'s elite schmooze and network below. A waiter offered him champagne. He declined. He'd been sober from pretense for 5 years, ever since his son Marcus died, and he realized none of these people had shown up to the funeral. "Mr. Castle," a woman in a red dress approached, smile too wide, perfume too strong. "I've been hoping to run into you. I have a proposal that could benefit both our portfolios. I'm sure you do." His voice was polite but distant. "Email my assistant." He left before she could respond. Julian had built a billion-dollar empire in commercial real estate, but tonight, standing among D.C.'s power players, he felt poorer than he'd ever been growing up in Baltimore public housing. At least back then, people's motives were honest. He headed for the exit, pulling his keys from his pocket, when his phone buzzed. A reminder. Marcus's birthday tomorrow. He would have been 13. Julian closed his eyes, steadied his breath, and walked into the November rain. Back in Georgetown. Kendra waited until the last guest left before she finally opened the certified letter in the quiet of the bedroom. Her hands shook as she read, "Dear Ms. Matthews, regarding the estate of Charlotte Ann Morrison, deceased, we are pleased to inform you that the probate process has been finalized. You are the sole heir to the Morrison Trust, valued at $703 million, including the property located at 1422 Foxhall Road, NW, Georgetown." Kendra's breath caught. 1422 Foxhall Road, the address of the mansion she was standing in. The mansion Gregory had told her he leased through his firm, the mansion he'd been calling his investment property for 3 years. Her hands trembled so badly the letter slipped to the floor. Downstairs, she heard Gregory's voice on the phone, laughing about something. Probably another deal. Another win. He had no idea. And for the first time in years, Kendra smiled. Have you ever discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about your life? Drop a comment. I want to hear your story. The dinner party 2 nights later wasn't supposed to be special. Gregory had invited his usual crowd, real estate developers, attorneys, a few low-level politicians trying to look important. Kendra had prepared everything perfectly, as always. She'd even worn the navy dress Gregory once said made her look almost elegant. She should have known something was wrong when Sienna Blake arrived. Sienna was Gregory's administrative assistant, a title that had always felt like a punchline Kendra wasn't in on. She was younger, polished, the kind of woman who wore confidence like expensive perfume. Tonight, Sienna sat at the head of the table, in Kendra's seat. "Everyone," Gregory stood, tapping his wine glass with a fork. The room quieted. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight. There's something important I need to share." Kendra stood in the doorway between the kitchen and dining room, holding a tray of dessert plates. Gregory didn't look at her. "Sienna and I are expecting a child." The room erupted in congratulations. Someone popped a bottle of champagne. Kendra's hands went numb. "And as we prepare for this new chapter," Gregory continued, his voice smooth, rehearsed, "I've made the difficult decision to end my marriage. Kendra, this hasn't been working for a while. We both know it." 30 pairs of eyes turned to her. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Gregory walked over, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out a folded document. He handed it to her like he was passing her a napkin. "That's an eviction notice. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. I've already had your things moved to the guest house. This home," he gestured around the room, "it's not appropriate for you anymore. Sienna and the baby need the space." Sienna stood, one hand on her barely visible baby bump, the other adjusting her diamond bracelet. She walked over to Kendra, leaned in close, and whispered just loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "Finally, this house gets a woman who actually belongs in it." Kendra looked down at the eviction notice. Her name misspelled. Kendra Matthews. He couldn't even get that right. She looked up at Gregory, this man she'd loved, supported, believed in, and saw a stranger. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She folded the eviction notice, set it on the table beside the dessert tray, and walked toward the door. "Kendra," Gregory started, but she didn't stop. She grabbed her coat from the foyer, her purse, and walked out into the November night. Behind her, she heard Sienna's high-pitched laugh. "Well, that was easier than I thought." Kendra walked. She didn't know where she was going, just away. The rain started light, then heavy, soaking through her coat, her dress, her skin. She ended up on a bench outside the mansion gates, staring at the lights inside. Shadows moved across the windows. The party continued. They'd already forgotten her. Her phone buzzed. Messages poured in. "Girl, I just heard. I'm so sorry. Is it true about Gregory and his assistant? You okay?" She turned her phone off. The rain poured harder. Headlights slowed on the street. A black Range Rover pulled to the curb. The window rolled down. A man's voice, deep and careful. "You need a ride?" Kendra didn't look up. "I'm fine." "You're soaked." "I said I'm fine." Silence. The engine idled. The rain drummed against the pavement. "I'm not trying to be a hero," the man said, "but I've been where you are, and sitting in the rain doesn't make it hurt less, just makes you cold." Something in his voice, no pity, just honesty, made her look up. The man behind the wheel was older, maybe mid-40s, with kind eyes and a face that looked like it had seen its share of storms. Julian Castle. She didn't know his name yet, didn't know he was a billionaire, didn't know he'd lost his son 5 years ago and hadn't let anyone close since. All she knew was that he wasn't looking at her like she was broken. He was looking at her like she was human. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Nowhere important. Where do you need to go?" Kendra looked back at the mansion, at the lights, at the life she'd just lost. "Anywhere but here," Julian nodded. "Get in." The car was warm, quiet. Leather seats, soft jazz playing low on the speakers. Kendra sat stiff in the passenger seat, arms wrapped around herself, staring straight ahead. Julian didn't ask questions, just drove. They passed the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, the tidal basin reflecting city lights on black water. The rain blurred everything into soft halos of gold and white. Finally, Julian broke the silence. "There's a hotel in DuPont Circle. Clean, quiet. I can get you a room. No strings." Kendra's jaw tightened. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. It's a dry bed and a door that locks." "I don't know you." "No," Julian said. "You don't. But you're soaked. It's 11 p.m., and unless you've got somewhere else to be, I'm offering basic human decency. That's it." Kendra turned to look at him for the first time. Really look. He wasn't like Gregory's friends, men who wore expensive watches like merit badges. Julian's suit was understated. His watch was simple. His face was calm but tired, like someone who'd survived something and came out quieter for it. "Why do you care?" she asked. Julian was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because 5 years ago, someone helped me when I didn't think I deserved it. I'm just paying it forward." Kendra looked out the window again. Her pride wanted to say no. Her exhaustion won. "Okay." The hotel was boutique, tucked between brownstones on a tree-lined street. Julian spoke quietly to the front desk clerk, handed over a credit card, and came back with a key. "Room 408. It's yours for as long as you need it." Kendra took the key. "I'll pay you back." "Don't worry about it." "I'm serious." Julian met her eyes. "So am I. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be easier." He turned to leave. "Wait!" Kendra's voice cracked. "What's your name?" He paused at the door. "Julian. Julian Castle." "I'm Kendra." "I know." He nodded toward the television in the lobby. A news ticker scrolled across the bottom. "Gregory Matthews, prominent D.C. real estate consultant, announces engagement to assistant Sienna Blake." Kendra's stomach turned. Julian's voice softened. "For what it's worth, Kendra, you deserved better than that." And then he was gone. Kendra stood in the hotel room, staring at herself in the mirror. Mascara streaked down her face, hair plastered to her head, dress clinging and ruined. She looked like a ghost. Her phone buzzed. She'd turned it back on out of habit. Messages flooded in, most from people she barely knew. "OMG, did you see the news? Gregory's engagement is everywhere. Sienna's already posting pics in your house, girl." Kendra opened Instagram. Sienna's latest post. A photo in the master bedroom, hand on her belly, caption reading, "New beginnings in my dream home. Blessed when a family first." The comments were full of congratulations. No one mentioned Kendra. She turned her phone off again, sat on the edge of the bed, and let herself cry. Not because she still loved Gregory, but because she'd given 3 years of her life to a man who erased her in 48 hours. Kendra woke to sunlight streaming through white curtains and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. She sat up, disoriented, and saw a note slipped under the door. "Breakfast is downstairs. On me. Take your time. Jay." She should have left, should have figured out her next move on her own. But her stomach was empty, and she was tired of fighting alone. Julian was sitting in the hotel cafe, laptop open, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when Kendra approached. "You came? You bought me breakfast. Seemed rude not to." He smiled, just barely. "Sit." She did. A waiter brought coffee, croissants, fresh fruit. Kendra ate in silence and Julian didn't push. Finally, she spoke. "Why are you doing this?" Julian closed his laptop. "Honestly, I don't know. Last night I was driving home from a gala I didn't want to be at, thinking about my son's birthday, and then I saw you, and something told me to stop." "Your son?" Julian's face shifted, grief carefully controlled. "He passed 5 years ago, leukemia. He was 7. Kendra's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. Me too. Julian took a slow breath. After he died, I threw myself into work. Built hotels, office towers, shopping centers. Made more money than I'll ever spend. But none of it brought him back. And none of it made me feel less alone. Kendra looked down at her coffee. I know that feeling. They sat in shared silence. Then Kendra's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Matthews? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. This is Patricia Reynolds from Morrison & Associates. We've been trying to reach you regarding your grandmother's estate. Kendra's pulse quickened. I got the letter. Good. We need to meet. Today, if possible. There are complications with the property. Your husband has been leasing it under false premises. If we don't move quickly, he could... I'll be there. Kendra's voice was steady. What time? 2 p.m. Our office is on K Street. Kendra hung up. Julian was watching her. Everything okay? She looked at him. This stranger who'd shown her more kindness in 12 hours than her husband had in 3 years. I need a lawyer, she said. A good one. Julian didn't hesitate. I know the best in the city. But first, you need to tell me what's going on. Kendra hesitated. Trusting people hadn't worked out well for her. But something about Julian felt different. The house Gregory just kicked me out of, she said quietly. I own it. All $700 million of it. He just doesn't know yet. Julian's eyebrows rose. You're serious. Dead serious. A slow smile spread across Julian's face. Then we've got work to do. 3 hours later, they were sitting in Patricia Reynolds' office. Patricia was a sharp black woman in her 60s, wearing a burgundy suit and no-nonsense expression. She spread documents across the mahogany desk. Your grandmother, Charlotte Morrison, was a legend, Patricia said. She bought her first property in Georgetown in 1948 with money she saved working as a seamstress. By the 1980s, she owned half the block. She never advertised it, never flaunted it, just built quietly. Kendra stared at the documents, deeds, trust agreements, her grandmother's handwriting on notes in the margins. Why didn't she tell me? Because she wanted you to discover it when you were ready, Patricia said gently. She left a letter. I was instructed to give it to you only after the estate was finalized. She handed Kendra a sealed envelope. Kendra's hands shook as she opened it. My dearest Kendra, if you're reading this, I'm gone, but my legacy lives in you. I didn't tell you about the properties because I wanted you to know your worth without them. Money doesn't make you powerful, baby girl. Knowing who you are does. But now it's time for you to step into what's yours. That house on Foxhall Road? I bought it in 1952, raised your mother there, buried my dreams and my heartbreaks in those walls. And now it's yours. Don't let anyone make you small in a space I built for queens. Stand tall, fight smart, and when you find real love, the kind that sees you, not what you own, don't run from it like I did. You come from women who built empires. Now go build yours. All my love. Grandma Charlotte Kendra's tears fell onto the letter. Julian, sitting beside her, didn't say a word, just rested a hand gently on her shoulder. Patricia continued. The lease, Gregory's firm, had expired 60 days ago. He's been living there without legal standing, and the eviction notice he served you? She held it up. Legally worthless. He has no authority to evict you from your own property. Kendra looked up, eyes red but fierce. What do I do? Patricia smiled. We take it back. Julian's estate in McLean, Virginia was nothing like the Georgetown mansion. It was modern, warm, filled with bookshelves and art and windows overlooking the Potomac. You didn't have to bring me here, Kendra said as they walked through the front door. Patricia said you need to stay off the radar for 72 hours while the legal paperwork finalizes. Gregory can't know what's coming. And you trust me in your home? Julian set down his keys. Kendra, I watched you walk away from a man who humiliated you in front of 30 people without raising your voice. Yeah, I trust you." Something in her chest loosened. For the first time in years, she felt safe. That night, Kendra sat on Julian's terrace, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the river. Julian brought her tea, sat beside her. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything." "Why'd you really stop? That night in the rain?" Julian was quiet for a long time. "Because you reminded me of my son." Kendra turned to him, confused. "Not literally," Julian said, "but the way you were sitting there, alone, hurting, trying to hold it together. That's how Marcus looked in the hospital the last week of his life. He was so brave, so quiet, and I couldn't save him." His voice cracked. "I drive past people in pain all the time. Tell myself it's not my problem, but that night I couldn't. I just couldn't drive past you." Kendra reached over and took his hand. "He was lucky to have you." "I don't know about that." Julian wiped his eyes. "I spent his whole life building companies, chasing deals, trying to prove I was more than the kid from Baltimore who wore the same shoes 2 years in a row. And then he got sick, and none of it mattered. All the money in the world couldn't save him." "But you tried. That's what love does." Julian looked at her. "You're wiser than you know. My grandmother used to say that real wealth isn't what you own. It's who you are when everything's stripped away." She sounds like she was incredible. She was. Kendra smiled through tears. She walked away from her family because they didn't approve of the man she loved. Lived in a tiny house in Mississippi, worked as a seamstress, and she never regretted it. She chose love over money. But she still built an empire. "Yeah," Kendra laughed softly. "She did, quietly, like everything she did. I'm sure. If she won't fight for herself, I'll fight for her." Meanwhile, in a small Airbnb near Union Station, Kendra sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her grandmother's letter. "When you find real love, the kind that sees you, don't run from it like I did." She'd run, just like her grandmother warned her not to. Her phone buzzed. Julian. Again. She didn't answer. But his voicemail played. "Kendra, I know you're scared. I know you think you're protecting me. But I lost my son because I couldn't control fate. I'm not losing you because you think you're not worth fighting for. You are. And tomorrow the whole city's going to know it." Kendra closed her eyes. Tears fell. And for the first time, she didn't wipe them away. The next morning, Kendra sat in the Airbnb staring at the ceiling. Her phone rang. Patricia. "Kendra, where are you? The eviction is finalized. We serve Gregory in 2 hours. You need to be there." "I don't want revenge, Patricia. I just want peace." Patricia's voice softened. "Then take back what's yours and build that peace on your own terms. But don't let fear decide for you." Kendra thought about her grandmother, about Julian, about the woman she used to be and the woman she was becoming. "I'll be there." Across town, at the National Press Club. Julian stood at a podium, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. "Mr. Castle, is it true you're in a relationship with Kendra Matthews? Is she using you for your money? Do you have any comment on the allegations?" Julian raised a hand. Silence fell. "I'm going to say this once," he began, voice steady and firm. "Kendra Matthews is one of the most dignified, courageous women I've ever met. She was publicly humiliated by a man who never deserved her, and instead of collapsing, she stood up." He looked directly into the cameras. "The tabloids want to make her a villain because that's easier than admitting a powerful man failed. But I know the truth. And so does everyone who's actually paying attention." "Are you saying you're in love with her?" a reporter shouted. Julian paused, then smiled. "I'm saying she's worth fighting for, and if that makes me a fool, so be it." Back at the Airbnb, Kendra watched the press conference on her phone. Tears streamed down her face. She grabbed her coat, her purse, and ran. 10 a.m., Georgetown Estate. Gregory and Sienna were hosting a brunch for investors. Champagne flowed. Laughter echoed. Then the doorbell rang. A fleet of black SUVs pulled up. Lawyers, security, and Kendra, stepping out in a tailored emerald suit, head high, eyes blazing. Gregory's face went white. Kendra walked through the front door, her door. Patricia stepped forward. This property, valued at $700 million, is owned by Ms. Kendra Matthews, sole heir to the Charlotte Morrison estate. Mr. Gregory Matthews and Ms. Sienna Blake are unlawfully occupying this residence. You have 72 hours to vacate. Sienna's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattered on the marble floor. Gregory stammered, "This is insane. I'll fight this. Kendra's voice, calm and clear, cut through the chaos. "You can't fight the truth, Gregory. You never owned this, and you never owned me." The room fell silent. Phones came out. Cameras flashed. This was going to be everywhere. Security stepped forward. "Sir, ma'am, you need to leave. Now." Sienna grabbed Gregory's arm. "Do something!" But Gregory had nothing. As they were escorted out, Gregory looked back at Kendra one last time. She didn't flinch, didn't gloat, just stood there, a queen in the house her grandmother built. And then Julian walked in. He'd come straight from the press conference. Kendra turned, saw him, and her composure finally cracked. Tears fell. Julian crossed the room in 3 strides, cupped her face in his hands. "You came back," she whispered. "I never left." "I'm sorry I ran." "You don't have to be strong all the time, Kendra." "I know. I'm learning." And then, in front of lawyers, security, and a few stunned guests still holding champagne glasses, they kissed, slow, tender, real, the kind of kiss built on truth, not performance. 6 months later, the Georgetown estate had been transformed. The East Wing now housed the Charlotte Morrison Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs, a nonprofit helping women from underserved communities build businesses, buy property, reclaim power. Kendra stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony in a cream suit, Julian beside her, smiling. Reporters crowded the lawn. "Ms. Matthews, how does it feel to reclaim your inheritance?" Kendra smiled. "It's not just about the money. It's about honoring my grandmother's legacy. She built this empire quietly. I'm just making sure her name is remembered." "And your relationship with Mr. Castle?" Kendra glanced at Julian. He squeezed her hand. "Julian taught me that love isn't about what someone can give you. It's about who they are when everything's stripped away." Julian leaned into the microphone. "And Kendra taught me that it's never too late to open your heart again." The crowd applauded. Later, after the guests left, Kendra and Julian walked through the garden hand in hand. "You know," Julian said, "I never thought I'd feel whole again after Marcus died. And now? Now I know that love doesn't replace what you lost. It just makes room for something new." Kendra stopped walking, turned to face him. "I love you, Julian Castle." He grinned. "I love you too, Kendra Matthews. Think we can make this work, blending our worlds?" "I think we already are." They kissed under the cherry blossom trees, sunlight filtering through the branches. Gregory lost everything: his job, his reputation, his credibility. Sienna left him 2 months after the eviction, moved on to a doctor in Bethesda, and never mentioned Gregory's name again. Gregory ended up in a 1-bedroom apartment in Silver Spring, working in sales, bitter and alone. He saw Kendra once, months later, at a charity gala. She was radiant, confident, on Julian's arm. Gregory tried to approach her. Julian stepped forward, calm but firm. "Keep walking." Gregory did, because he finally understood. He'd had a queen, and he traded her for fool's gold. Inside the mansion, Kendra placed a bronze plaque on the garden wall. It read, "In memory of Charlotte Ann Morrison, a woman who built empires and raised queens, 1925 to 2022. Julian wrapped his arms around her from behind. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so. I know so." Kendra leaned back into him, closed her eyes, and smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be, not because of the mansion, not because of the money, but because she knew her worth, and she'd found someone who saw it too. If this story reminded you that your worth isn't determined by who left you, drop a "ab" in the comments. You're royalty, even when they can't see it. See you in the next one. Subscribe so you don't miss it.